Onana has left Manchester United. He didn't want to leave, but he's caved and he's gone after we signed Lemens and he was dropped for Bayindir. But Onana's not happy about the way his Manchester United career has ended. And he is making accusations that he was scapegoated and believes that he was scapegoated, apparently. We're going to talk about the whole Onana Ineos situation. We'll talk about what's been reported on that and why Onana was eventually loaned out in the end, when a month ago it looked like Onana was going to stay. We're going to talk about the latest on Carlos Baleba, Manchester United's January transfer plans and January targets. We'll talk about Mbeumo, and we'll talk about the latest on the injury front. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news, transfer news, and update roundup show. We're rounding up all the latest news in 10 minutes for you guys. So yeah, let's dive into the news. So this was reported by Graham Bailey. Onana firmly believes that he's been used as something of a scapegoat, and he still thinks that he is the best goalkeeper United have. But he's heading into a World Cup year and an African Cup of Nations year, and wants to be playing, so is accepted to move to Turkey. So Onana believes he is the best goalkeeper and has pretty much accused Ineos and Amorim of scapegoating him, according to Graham Bailey. Onana believes he was scapegoated, believes Amorim, believes Ineos has scapegoated him. This is one of a few stories. That is crazy. That is crazy. The fact is, Onana was not good enough. I tried to defend Onana. I was excited when we signed Onana, and I was incredibly disappointed with what we got. He had good periods for Manchester United, but he's the reason we got knocked out of the Champions League. He cost us in so many games last season. He was atrocious in the Grimsby game. He's been atrocious for Cameroon in the international break. Man United do this thing where we scapegoat players. David De Gea was scapegoated. Ronaldo was scapegoated. Fred was scapegoated. Maguire was scapegoated at some point. And it's not a situation of you just change the goalkeeper and we'll be fine. There's a lot more that needs to be fixed at this club, and it's not just Onana that's the issue. But if you look back at last season, not having a good striker and not having a goalkeeper was probably two biggest issues, because Onana let in so many goals a competent keeper wouldn't let in. And then we didn't have the striker to score goals that we should have probably scored. And that's what cost us. So I think Onana thinking that he's been scapegoated is crazy. Thinking that Amorim and Ineos have scapegoated him, I think is absolutely crazy. I mean, accusation to even think. Because, look, we do scapegoat people at Manchester United. We do scapegoat players, this and that. And I'm not saying that Bayindir is a lot better than Onana. In fact, I'm not convinced Bayindir is better than Onana, but right now he is, because Onana's clearly not in the headspace. Look, I think Lemens will be better than Onana, but of course, when you're a goalie and you put on a Man United shirt, there's a different level of mental pressure. I'm not going to sit here and say that Bayindir and Lemens are comfortably way better than Onana, but as of right now, I would rather Bayindir and Lemens play than Onana, and Lemens looks like a good young keeper that could be better than Onana and could be a steal. Look, in 2 years' time, we might sell Lemens. He can't do it at this level, and maybe he's not good enough. But he's on low wages, low book value. It's a low-risk deal. But we're bringing in Lemens because he looks really promising, has really good numbers, and we believe he'll be better than Onana. Of course, we have to see how the goalie does at United. It's a different thing being a goalkeeper at United. But I don't think Onana's been scapegoated. Even if Bayindir and Lemens have a poor season, Onana was not good enough. Ratcliffe backed the decision to drop Onana as number one, leaving Onana surprised. Obviously, Onana's expected to be number one going into the season. Bayindir was number one versus Arsenal, which was expected because of Onana's injury, but Onana was expecting he'd be back in goal versus Fulham after Bayindir's mistake, and he wasn't. Now, apparently, Amorim was unhappy with Onana after picking up a hamstring injury on the second day back in pre-season. There was also, a few days before Onana got injured, a video of him playing on a really bad muddy pitch in Cameroon, which apparently Amorim wasn't happy about either. And Amorim, alongside the director of football, Jason Wilcox, decided they wanted to move Onana on because they didn't want to disrupt the new signing Lemens' integration. So one of the big reasons for the board trying to force Onana out and move him on is because they don't want to disrupt Lemens' integration. And that says to me, clearly something's gone down a little bit behind the scenes with Onana and co. Onana asking for more money. But if Onana feels he's scapegoated, I think that's crazy. I think David De Gea could say he was scapegoated. But look, we had a lot of issues, and it's not just Onana. But for him to believe that he's been scapegoated or even suggest that I just think it's wild. And you know what made me laugh? I don't know if you saw it, but now Onana's leaving Man United, Sky Sports have gone and praised him for the first time. Sky Sports, since the moment we signed Onana, have never said a good thing about Onana. Never said a positive thing. The minute he's leaving Man United, they're saying, "Oh, it's a risk to sell Onana. He's a good goalkeeper." I wanted to believe Onana was a good goalkeeper. I wanted us to sign him. I backed him a little bit in the second half of the first season because I thought he was good. And then he just crap when Amorim came in the door. But Onana has not been a good goalkeeper for United. You know, you can say it's a risk because Diaz and Lemens are not proven. But will Diaz and Lemens be worse than what Onana's currently giving us? I don't think so. But it always made me laugh that Sky Sports are now going, oh, will United regret selling Onana? Is it a risk? You know, Onana now thinks he's been scapegoated. Like, what is this mentality change? Also, Cape Verde's Livramento literally scored a goal past Onana, and Onana just stood there, didn't come off his line, and it just went through the middle of Onana, basically. He's not had a good game for Cameroon. Now, talking to Cameroon, I want to talk about the Cameroonians in Baleba and Mbeumo in today's video. But yeah, that's the Onana stuff. United are prepared to place a bid for Baleba in January to see off any rival suitors. The player has requested that Brighton accept any suitable bid and he's eager to join Ruben Amorim with or without European football. So this was reported by Sean Connolly a few days before the Romana reports that United are prepared to place a bid for Baleba in January to try and get away, to try and fend off any rival suitors. Now, we don't know if that means Brighton would accept a bid in January. As of now, Brighton do not want to accept any bids for Baleba until next summer, but United are going to try in January. Baleba is putting pressure on Brighton to say if a good bid comes in, will you accept? I want to go to United. We may have to wait till the summer, but it looks like United are going to test the waters in January. Even Fabrizio Romano said yesterday that United is sticking to the idea of adding one midfielder in January. It's unsure whether that midfielder they will add in January will be a big player like Baleba or whether it be an opportunity. I think the stance is United would love to add Baleba in January, but it may depend on Brighton, their stance, if they want to sell or not. Because if Brighton don't want to sell, we're probably looking at opportunities like Conor Gallagher. We want a midfielder. I think we've realised we've probably got to bring in a midfielder in January. It's such an important position to go a season without. And I think we want to make sure we bring in the right midfielder, a Wharton, an Elliot Anderson, a Baleba, and try and do that in January. But if we can't do that, we may look at a part-time option, a temporary option, just because the midfield is weak. Interestingly, I've noticed that Manchester United have been linked to quite a few players already. Despite the window just closing, there was obviously a report that we agreed personal terms with Baleba and we tried to sign him in the summer, but obviously he signed a new deal and we may go back in from next summer. The Baleba interest remains high, but there's been recent links to Elliot Anderson from Footy Insider and other sources that United like Elliot Anderson, but I do think because he's been playing really well for England, the links to him are going to increase naturally. Like, I'd like us to be in for Elliot Anderson, but is it because he's a player that plays in midfield that's doing well for England? Journalists are saying, well, Man United must be looking at him because he's what they need and writing a story about Man United looking at him. Or are we actually looking at Elliot Anderson? Because I still think our focus is on Baleba, but I would love both Baleba and Elliot Anderson to replace Ugarte and Casemiro. I'd love Semenyo to come in to bring some pace off the bench or in that first team, and I'd love another centre-back to come in for depth in the summer. Continuing on, I want to talk about a few other stories. I want to talk about Mbeumo, another Cameroonian who spoke about joining United. I'm really happy. The teammates, staff, everyone in Carrington are lovely people. You really want to come in and work here every day. It's really good. Mbeumo said he's also not at his peak yet, and he knows his peak is to come and wants to be even better at his peak. And look, he's Man United's Player of the Month. He started everything so well at Manchester United, and hopefully he can continue on this good form at Manchester United. In regards to other midfield plans, with United not signing a midfielder, if there was an injury crisis in midfield, Sekou Kone is believed to get an opportunity. Solly said that Sekou Kone is doing individual grass training after his injury that he suffered, and he's set to return to the under-21 soon. And there's an expectation he could be involved in first-team training later this season and potentially get opportunities. So, you know, with the midfield situation, Sekou Kone could be one to watch without us signing a midfielder. And then last but not least, we've got some updates on the injury front. We don't think Cunha will be back for the derby, but it's not expected to be serious. We don't know if Mount will be back, but Mount's injury apparently is just precaution, not expected to be serious. But from a Man City perspective, they've got a few injuries, and Marmoush apparently is believed to be out of the derby. So Manchester City are missing a few players. And look, Man United haven't won back-to-back games for like a year and a half now, so this would be a really good opportunity to finally win back-to-back games. And last but not least, Marcus Rashford did score for England, so hopefully that gives him some confidence to go on at Barcelona and start smashing it, and then we can get some money for Rashford. So that is your 10-minute roundup. Thank you guys for watching today's video. See you next time. Bye.